Every time we do a little countdown, it reminds me of
iCarly?
iCarly.
This is basically the iCarly of motion design, so, you know.
Great. Let's
Now,
put that on a giant billboard.
when I was walking into the building today, I did
Mm-hmm.
ultimately have two guys yell out at me, Clay Aikens. So, whatever the hell that means, because
Clay
I looked up
Aikens.
Clay Aikens, and I don't think I look anything like Clay Aikens.
Hold on.
So,
Nope. That's just not true.
just not true. Couldn't tell you. What up, Leah? How you doing? Glad to see you on this lovely morning. Anyway, we got all sorts of fun stuff for y'all today.
Like Clay
Like Clay and Aikens.
and a little bit of Aikens.
Just a little bit of Aiken, you know?
If you don't look like this person, you just don't.
I know. I really
You
don't
just don't.
understand where it was coming from, but that's okay.
What did he star in?
I couldn't tell you.
Texas
anyway.
Ranger. Okay, they knew you were from Texas.
They must have known. I don't know how. I just give off those vibes, I guess. You know? What up, Clement? How you doing?
don't
Oh,
know these
good.
things.
He said howdy. Howdy's right. Well, Garrett, how you doing? What is up? We are going to be having a grand old time talking about how to get bigger budgets on your projects, announcing the new Ravie challenge. Don't tell anybody. It's a secret. We haven't posted about it yet, but don't tell. We'll tell you guys first. Just don't tell anybody else.
Right.
All right.
Because you're watching the live stream. And
You're
that means you
watching
get
Disney
first
Channel.
access.
Anyway, so that's the vibe. Do you want to? I guess we can. Now let's wait a little bit to talk about the challenge. Let's talk about bigger budgets first.
These budgets I'm getting, they're just so small and baby. And I just don't know what to do with myself. How do I attract bigger budgets? How do I do it?
What is small?
I feel like that's a leading question. What is small? Budgets.
What's small to you?
The amount of money. Oh, you're asking for numbers.
Yep.
Let's say, oh, I keep getting $200 per video. How do I move from there?
I wouldn't know anything about what that's like. What?
No, actually, specifically, it's 210?
Yeah.
$210,
That sounds about right.
which canonically is how much Austin used to charge when he
It-
first started out
It
per
is
video.
$210
No matter
per video.
What the video was? It
8
was that
hours
much.
max spent on each one. No voiceover, no real abstract. Well, I guess it was abstract, but you know, $210 a video is all we need to know there. All right. So here's the thing. I wish I had like a fake convo we could go through on this in order to like role play what that's like to offer that and then point out where it's going wrong. But whatever, maybe we'll get there.
That's why you studied improv with. Who'd you study improv with?
Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Yeah.
That's why you studied with him.
At the Walmart Comedy Club.
Right.
Any Hoosers.
Mhm.
So I would say, from my experience, most people most of my work was word of mouth. I would say probably 90% of my work was word of mouth. All right. And what that means is that I did work for a client and then they had friends or somebody saw that they had a new video made and asked them who did it for them and probably information about like budget and timeline and all that sort of stuff. And so when people came to me, word of mouth, already hearing that I'd charged another person $210, I'm kind of already stuck. I'm planted in my little hole there, you know, like it's going to be really hard to convince someone to do a vastly different price than $210 if they already heard this video costs $210. So I guess what do we do now that's different than that? Most of the time now, we will offer a range of budgets up until we get like further into the conversation. So that way, even if they have somebody come to them later, we've already got like a box that we can play within that's probably got a much higher end than what we actually ended up charging them necessarily on that project. So for example, somebody might come to us for a 30-second video and we might tell them $12,000 to $20,000. And that's a pretty big sandbox to play in. We might end up coming to like 15 or 17 or something, but that means later on there's still room for growth. Another important thing.
Real quick before you go to another important thing.
Yep.
I will say, as you get into as you work with larger companies or larger brands, creative companies, they understand that different kinds of projects, they get all the factors that could make pricing go up. And they've sort of been in your shoes, so they can be a lot more, I guess, helpful when it comes to being like, oh, I need to move my prices up in this and that, and this is a more complex style, so I need to charge more, and this is going to take more time, and et cetera, et cetera. They're very understanding of that kind of stuff. And additionally, word of mouth is fantastic for getting work, but when it's very B2B, sometimes it can set expectations based on what you did for the other person. And if you're like a growing studio, sometimes those expectations are then set too low and they come to you and they're not able to afford you. Which is cause for other ways of getting clients than just word of mouth, unless you're really happy with exactly how you're pricing and you're in a very comfortable spot for yourself. And that just goes into social media.
Business to business, by the way.
Right.
And yes, that's essentially what I was going to say, was just make that word of mouth, turn that around. Don't let your clients control the story about you. It's nice to have clients that will refer you and those sorts of things, but also you should be putting out personal projects or other content or something like that will allow people to get an impression of you that you are controlling. And as a result, you'll get people that don't know what your pricing is until you tell them. And believe me, we know that it can work both ways. We have people coming to us that are like $400 for a 2-minute video or something, and we're like, not even going to entertain a response to that usually. But we also have a solid enough number of people that'll have like higher pricing and whatever. And I guess the key to just being able to charge higher prices is honestly just confidence. We have this one particular example where we actually recorded this call that Noah and I had with a founder a couple years ago. And we did all this math and planned all this out and figured it out. And we were going to charge $30,000 for this thing, which for us at that time would have been like by far our biggest sale. But we were going to do a lot. And so we had heard like, just like put the price out there and then just sit. Don't say anything. All right. Just let them sit with it. Now, this guy was just kind of an ass, so it didn't really work because he was like, oh, you're joking, right? And was just kind of being rude about it. But typically, if you just sit by your number, and then if they're like, no, that's absolutely not going to work or whatever, don't immediately spiral into being like, oh, okay, well, we can probably do it for like this number or this number, because then that's whatever foundation you had of strength or power in that conversation or whatever is gone, because they know that they know they have the control in that relationship. You want it to be a 50-50 split on the power in that conversation, all right? You don't want the client owning you, and you don't want to own the client. And the way to do that is just stay firm in your pricing, and you're not always going to get people, like if you up your prices quite a lot, I mean, if you're talking about like doubling or tripling your prices or something like that, you are most likely going to get a lot of people at first that are going to say, no, that's too expensive, because they already had expectations that your prices are somewhat lower. But you just keep those higher prices for long enough, as long as they're not absolutely insane. That just takes knowing the market and asking other people what they charge and those sorts of things. Then at some point, it will be known that is what your pricing is in that word of mouth circle, and somebody might have the budget for that. It just takes consistency and sticking to your guns and really just not backing down on that pricing if that's what you want. Now, I'm not saying go out and charge like $1 million for a 30-second video or something like that. You can do that if you're like Buck or whoever, but you certainly can't do that if you're just a freelancer. But ask around. Ask people what they're charging. Get a good idea of what the going rates are for things. And then you should be able to slot yourself into where you think you are in the industry, and have a better more confident idea of what to charge.
Right out. Some other little strategies are slowly raising your pricing. I know that a lot of freelancers will do this as they become better and faster,
Mm-hmm.
which is very fair. So slowly they raise their day rate. And we sort of did this, except not super slowly. So there's that over time. And then also a little note on the pricing talk with clients. You can say, like, oh, if they're like, this is too much, this is altogether too much, you're like, oh, well, let's see if we can come to a compromise and come to like a, maybe you don't deliver the full video, maybe there's some part of this delivery that is more important to you and is worth like that percentage of the price. Like maybe they have $5,000 and they want a full minute video and you are like, that's going to be $10,000. But maybe if you just want this little like basic brand thing, what am I trying to say? Maybe you want like just the message to get across, and maybe a 15-second is able to do that.
Yeah.
And therefore, a 15-second would fit into your $5,000 price range. So maybe we can still work together. I'm just not going to be able to give you the full thing because you're not going to be able to pay the full thing.
Right. I mean, it's a whole
So just
other
adjust that time.
it's a whole other thing to talk about, just how to sell in general. But at the end of the day, you are the practitioner here. You know, like you are making sure that you are getting the client what they need. A lot of the times people just won't know what's going to work well.
Right.
And it's kind of your job to tell them that.
And additionally, you can be transparent with those clients on like, hey, this is how much this costed, but my prices are going to go up pretty soon. And that way, if they do end up word of mouthing you to someone else, they also have the caveat of like, oh, but this person's prices might be higher now because they told me that was probably the last time they're going to charge that amount for that kind of video. So you can you can just tell them.
And that's the
expectations.
That's the key to selling in general, is just be open and honest and have a transparent conversation with people, and usually you won't run into many problems.
It's better if they trust you than if they like you.
Yep. You can also, like, straight up on calls before, we have been like, I'm going to be honest, we do not know what to charge for this yet. We are going to need to go and talk about it. It might be between this and this number, but we really don't know. And so we're going to get you a response by the end of the day, but we just got to go talk about it. But there also are times where it is very important to show that you're like confident in your numbers to be able to just like call out pricing on a call sometimes, which is a very difficult skill to get comfortable with. I know I had a lot of trouble with that for a while.
Yeah, but also sort of depends on the person you're talking to.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's how to get bigger budgets.
Song and dance a little bit.
Be confident. Don't back down.
Confident. You got this. Some people might not pay, but someone will.
Yep.
That's almost always true.
What do we got in the chat here? 8 use your power. I like this, especially the prices for the video, but not in all countries, alas. Well, I mean, did we talk about how to work outside of the US? No, we have, or sorry, internationally. I think we have it on a list to talk about, but anyway, I think that's just about finding the markets where you can charge that pricing. You know, if you want to just work locally and you're in a country that has, that doesn't value motion as much, then of course if you're working with those companies, you're not going to get high budgets like that. But there are a billion different ways to be able to connect with people that are in the hotspot markets to get work. If your work is good, you should be able to get projects with them. Tutu says, ask who? I don't know anyone talking about how much they charge. Well, that's the thing. You have to just be curious, and anybody. Anybody. I mean,
some people won't want to tell you, but some people will be happy to.
Yeah, like, I mean, some people are not going to want to disclose that information, but usually if you genuinely want to make a relationship with someone and they can tell that you have a vested interest in who they are and what they're doing, then usually it's a pretty open industry, you know? But a lot of people will be closed off, and that's understandable, but I don't know. We're trying to change some things like that. Leah says, wait, so is it a good idea to ask the client what they should be able to afford and then negotiate that? Or, well,
That's a
A lot of
sometimes.
sometimes they'll tell you like excuse me, sorry. For example, let me pop on over to my screen for a second. On the Ravie website, we have on our get in touch page this little contact form, which way too many people that aren't clients have filled out. Hey, shouting it into the void. This is for us to get money, not to do mentorships or internships. Anyway,
Yeah,
sorry.
if you want that kind of stuff, email
Just
us.
email us, but please stop using our contact form on our site. We're trying to get work through here. Anyway, we have a contact form here so that you can, okay, whatever.
Since you go.
Timeline, whatever. But we, at a certain point, we ask them if they have a budget, and this usually is a point where people either, I mean, they will either tell us here or they won't tell us. There's a lot of the times we get a range here, but if they don't, if they haven't already given you a price at some point, most often they're probably just going to tell you, well, I don't know. I don't have a budget allocated for it yet, because that would, why would they, you know, unless they've already been given like a very specific budget and they're not like, if they're just a piece of the puzzle, like if they're at a giant corporation and they already have this budget allocated, they might tell you. But more often than not, if it's a founder or somebody higher up in that company, they're probably not going to tell you. And why would they? Because they would like to see if they could get you to work for cheaper than the actual like money that they've got. You know, that's just how it goes. Now, what we do and what I find super useful is if somebody says that they don't have a budget at this point, I'll still contact them because I mean, we want to chat with them and see if there's a good, working relationship possibility there. I will still hit them up and then be like, here is a list of sample pricing based on different lengths of video. And I do that for two reasons. One, so that if they can afford it, they already know what the pricing is, and we get to have that conversation before we even get on a call. That makes the actual call way easier, because you already have the like difficult conversation out of the way. And if they don't have the budget, it saves Noah and I 30 minutes to an hour of our time, because we don't have to waste our time dealing with like someone who wants us to work for them for like $100, you know? So anyway, that can be a fun way to do that. But more often than not, they're not going to tell you what their budget is. So you just need to have the confidence to be like, these are my prices. And you can send that over email or DMs or however you're communicating before you get on a call, just to make sure you're not wasting your time. But I say that knowing that like Ravie is in a very fortunate position. If we didn't have like as many sales last year or the year before that, like if it wasn't a growing company, I might not have the confidence in like our ability to get work, and it might be a little bit harder for me to take my own advice on that. But I don't know. In my opinion, it has benefited us greatly to, in the long run, just say no to a billion things because the budget was too low, rather than saying yes to everything in hopes of getting some money, you know?
Yeah. At the very beginning, it's nice to say yes to stuff, but, you know, just make sure you're not working for free or getting ripped off.
Yeah.
Make sure that it's, you know, if you're going to take really, at the beginning, if you're going to take really small prices and that kind of stuff, make sure that that project can be something that you can show to people to get higher prices.
Right.
Don't just let it be whatever.
Aktos says, I thought the price above $5,000. Sorry, geez, my throat's all messed up. I thought the price above $5,000 is already paying for a motion made not in After Effects. There is no pricing that is just set for After Effects animation. There are good motion designers and there are bad motion designers, and there's people in between, and that's how the pricing works. That's it. Whatever tool they're using is not, I mean, all right. There is 2D pricing for a lot of things, and then there's 3D pricing for a lot of things, but that's more often than not just because 3D is so much more expensive and time consuming. Like, you actually have much higher expenses as a business just to be able to do 3D, whether it's your machines that you're using just to like work on it in the programs, or if you have to have your own render farm or pay for a cloud rendering service, whatever. There's just higher costs with doing 3D, and it's usually more time consuming. So that's why you can probably get higher budgets there. But that's not all that great, because you might get a higher budget, but it's probably because you're already having to spend way more of that money. But there is no industry-wide thing about like this person's using After Effects, so they must get less than this amount of money. That's just not a thing. We said how much to ask for an advance payment for a video? 50%. Yeah, we always ask for 50% up front.
It can vary,
but typically 50%. If we raise that, it's because we're kind of skeptical of the project. Tutu says mentorship. Is there an age limit on that? I was just mentioning that because a lot of people go in there asking for a mentorship. It's not necessarily that we're offering that. But maybe at some point, I don't know. It's hard to offer that sort of thing.
Awesome, great idea with the survey.
Thank you.
Thank
you very much. It took us forever to get that right, by the way. We had like double the questions on there originally, and if you make a survey like that, put like the least amount of questions possible while still getting the information that you need. Because I mean, I can show you the data on this. Look at the amount of people that have started that form compared to how many have actually finished it. Over 5,400 people viewed it, then half of those actually started it, and then only 100 of those people actually finished it.
So we started at 5,000 and we ended at 100.
It's a really, really low percentage. But that's just how it goes. Anyway. Sorry.
Someone says, Oligard says, yes, they don't mentor people over 90 years.
It's true, because they know way more than we ever could, you know?
That's right.
Octo says the first question to the client is how much is he willing to spend on the video?
I would disagree with that.
Yeah. First, you want to
figure out,
understand what they're actually looking for, because
need.
You might be able to educate them on the actual pricing of some of what they're looking for. At the very least, I mean, what we used to do all the time, we don't do it as much anymore because we just don't get as many inquiries via DMs. But I used to get a ton of people that had just like really, really low budgets, like $50 when we were already charging like 10K plus. Are you taking a photo right now? What the hell? Oh, I see what you're doing. Got it. You're haloing yourself. Anyway, all right. So, fuck. Now let's turn the thought. God damn it, dude. What the fuck? All right.
Very easily distracted.
Yes, and now I am too. Thank you.
We have more questions.
$50. I used to have people coming to us for $50, and what I would tell them anyway is just like, hey, even if you're not working with us, like I'd give them a quote, but hey, even if you don't go with us, because I understand that it's pricey, you're probably still going to end up wanting to have a budget around this amount to get something good in this space, depending on what their niche was or anything like that. That can be helpful, and people will just appreciate that regardless, even if they don't work with you, and put yourself in a good position to when they go back to you. They might come back to you later when they have more funds to be able to do higher budgets and stuff. After Effects says, well, first After Effect earlier asked, where are the guests? We're hopefully going to have that starting next week. But what if Studio Online accept you as an intern and you told them to give you $2K early for upgrade your PC setup? Is that a normal thing? Or I guess maybe that's the new age version of the relocation cost. A lot, like in the US anyway, businesses used to pay people that they hired to like for their relocation expenses, like moving across the country and things like that. I haven't heard of any studios doing that where they would pay to upgrade your computer. But also, we see this in this particular community very often, I feel like, to where so many people feel like they have to have like a really good setup to do things. The tool does not matter. If you like, I don't know. There's two things to go for here. If they already hired you, you're probably already making work that's good with what you already have. So I don't know. That doesn't quite make sense for them to just be like, here's money to get a better computer. But also, if I had just hired someone, usually that's a trial period thing. Like usually now we're putting them on like 2 or 3 weeks probation to see if it's a good fit before actually like signing a like 3 to 6 month contract or something.
So if we were going to invest, it would be
after that. It wouldn't be like right at the beginning or anything like that. Jonas says, it is amazing how the dollar per second pricing model works. I feel like the complexity and therefore the time that goes into different pieces makes this hard to calculate. Not at all, actually. We know our limits, basically. As a studio, we know what we can do and what we can't do. And the times that we haven't known how to do something, we've been able to figure it out pretty quickly, generally, to where it's pretty profitable. We've really not had any problems with it. I don't know what the actual percentage profit is on most of our projects, especially since Noah and I don't work hourly. But I don't know. But that has worked better for us than any other pricing model, because time, one, can punish you if you're working faster, and then you just have to continually raise your rates until whenever somebody sees it on paper for the first time, they're like, what the hell? I'm not paying you this every day. Either that happens, or you end up just having it can just be such a ridiculous thing to keep track of, you know, the client not knowing what they're going to end up paying until the very end of the project is not usually a great relationship booster. And in our experience with some of the freelancers we've worked with, if it hasn't worked out and then we're stuck with the bill for like $5,000 worth of work that we couldn't even use, that sucks. Like, I'm not going to work with those people again if that happens. So I think it puts us in a much worse position relationship wise with the clients to do that. Leo says, a lot of the times when I tell people my rates, they sort of back off, even though it's reasonable. Like, what might cause that? Some people just don't know the value.
Follow up with is it maybe because I don't have enough work to show, or they don't feel that I am skilled enough for the price?
It's probably a combination of a bunch of different things, but I assume it's more often than not, it's a them problem, not a you problem. Like, they just might not value that type of service at that price, you know?
It's true.
Especially depending on the niche that you're in. I know we got a lot of Twitter designers in here. I was one of y'all for a while. Creative is incredibly undervalued on that platform.
Yes.
You get no money. Soon as you break outside of that and start going into just like the greater industry, you get so much more money.
That is extremely true. Different sectors will pay different amounts. Like we've had to do a lot of motion design companies also have to do a lot of client education.
Yep.
Of like kind of helping the client understand the value of stuff, and that happens a lot in like the sort of tech space and stuff. People who haven't really been familiar with creative, but in places like entertainment, that stuff is expensive and everybody knows it. So nobody really bats an eye when you drop the higher numbers. Yeah. They're like, yeah, okay. Because, I mean, with those larger brands and with entertainment, people get the value of creative. It's been around a while. Everyone kind of is in it. You know what I mean? So in different spaces, it's valued at different prices, or some people even know how to value it and some people don't. That's just how it is. So.
Agreed. Jonas also says, wouldn't a complex 5-second piece take more time and budget than a simple 10-second piece? Maybe, but I don't know.
Maybe.
We're fast as fuck. So, not really.
Fast as fuck.
Yeah.
I mean, we still have room to adjust. Like, we're not belabored to some spreadsheet that's like this many seconds is this many.
Yeah, we still make a gut decision, you know?
More complex, and we can boost it up, or like if we know that this 10-second thing is going to be kind of simple, we can drop it down a little bit and be like, hey, this is not going to be too complex. We're not going to charge you an arm and a leg for moving a couple shapes for 10 seconds.
Yeah, but also because of the size of the company that we are now, we just don't take those size projects, you know?
Yeah, the 10-second would be in part of a larger project.
Like, it gets way easier to make those sorts of decisions when you're not doing any work less than 30 seconds and more often than not like 45 to 60 seconds, you know?
Yeah, and I can't believe we haven't touched on this yet, but people with smaller budgets and smaller projects are usually a lot more stingy than people with larger budgets and bigger projects.
And it makes a lot of sense why, you know? Like, people would... there's that meme that goes around all the time where it's like the person with $250. This is so important to me and blah, 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 and you better do this, this, and this, and I hope it's the best thing you've ever made and whatever. And then you get like $50,000 client. Signed, looks cool. You know? Like that sort of comparison. But it makes sense.
That's absolutely true.
Think about it. Put yourself in the shoes of that small business owner with that small budget. That money to them is worth so much high. It's such a high percentage, more likely than not, of their available marketing budget, even if it's like $250 or something, you know? It's such a high number for them, relatively. But $50,000 for a giant corporation is like a fleck off of a penny, you know? It doesn't even matter to them. And it's just that. It's just how much does that money matter to them? That's all it is in looking for those clients. And so when we get founders coming to us with really low budgets, we're just like, it's probably not something that Ravie is going to be super well suited to help out with at this point. Maybe if I was back just solo freelancing, maybe that's okay. But like, we can't spread that money out amongst the 7 people we have on the team now in a way that's efficient, and like moves Ravie forward. Achto says, if it's not a secret, Austin, where did you make more money? Selling sources in the store or custom orders for the client? It's not even close. Full transparency, we've made like $3,500 off of Gumroad project sales, and last year Ravie made $500,000 in sales from client work. So whatever percentage that is, it's just not even close. That's like less than 1% of our money came from Gumroad sales. Right. Client work is so much more expensive than like anything else, and for good reason. It's a new custom thing for every project, and it's a different audience. We're working with big businesses. We can't sell project files or classes or any of that stuff to the community for prices that we need for Ravie to be able to grow, because no individual person is going to be able to afford the prices that we would have a client pay for a fully custom project compared to what we could sell you guys for like one project file on a loop that we already made, you know? It's a very different thing. And it's more so the reason that we even charge for the project files is so that when people get them, they actually have a vested interest and want to look into them. I know I've gotten like plenty of free assets or whatever and never did anything with them because they were just free. So I just collected them and whatever, and I didn't learn anything from it, you know? But if I have to spend even a little bit of money on it, then I'm gonna get the value out of that thing, you know, because I had to actually put something into it. Ravie is not being built. Ravie is not being built off the back of Gumroad sales right now, as much as sometimes we wish it would be. Brian says, sorry to ask, but could you tell me if you have any experiences of losing all your project work due to PC crashing or data wipe, and what would you usually do for that kind of situation? No, because I always autosave.
We have, because we did the After Effects like shared project thing.
Okay, yes, one time.
Wiped, like a good portion of a project, but that was like
entirely Adobe's fault.
Us.
No, I don't.
I mean, in the client creative relationship,
yes, that was
our fault.
Yes,
it was Adobe's fault. It wasn't our fault. It was absolutely Adobe's fault for that.
But in terms of how the client would see it, yeah, it's ours.
So it is kind of your responsibility to figure that out, and you just work hard.
That just took multiple all-nighters and, you know, just getting it done, which not super healthy. And thanks to Noah and Chris for fixing that one while I was busy dying from being sick. Yes. But, you know, it was what it was. As long as you communicate with your client, they usually understand. Now, we would be in really big trouble if something like that happened for an event that we had for a client, because part of the reason we like those projects is because there is a finite end date. Like, they have all this stuff booked and they have to have the event. So if we don't have the stuff done by then, that's not good. We did not hold up our end of the bargain if we didn't have our stuff done. But if it's just for if it's for some ad campaign or whatever, more often than not, clients understand and are okay shifting like a day or two or whatever to figure it out. Because, you know, if you're otherwise doing a really good job and you have one hiccup and you explain it to them, they'll get it. They'll understand.
Maxim E asks a good question. Can't you put buttons in the type form to find out the budget, like price ranges, and that might be faster to complete?
So
yes, but that also gives...
It shows our hand.
It shows our hand a little bit and kind of leads the witness a little. If you have a price range that's like 0 to 10,000, like 10,000 to 20,000, 20,000 to like 30,000, 30,000 to 50,000, 50,000 above, that kind of is implying that you don't really get projects that are above $50,000.
Yeah, you don't want to show that, because if you get a big client coming to you that you would charge that much for, you don't want them thinking, oh, I found some people I can finally get a really low budget from and still get good work, you know? You don't want that to happen.
It could be fun to like do it in increments of 100,000. That might
But also
scare some people.
another thing that, yeah, that's what I'll say is nobody wants to be the one picking that bottom bracket, because they're like, oh, these guys aren't going to care about this, you know? Because it's the smallest budget that you could possibly be getting out of this list. Nobody wants to be that. So as much as from a UX standpoint, yes, it would make sense. At the same time, it puts us in a worse position, even if more people filled it out, you know? Hussein says, as a freelancer, should I charge per project or dollars per hour? Definitely not hourly. I'd say if you're going to do time-wise, I would do a day rate, but I would recommend charging per project. Like, at the very least, you can do the calculation to be like, what's my day rate? How many days do I think this will take? And then charge them that, maybe with like a little bit extra on top in case you have to use like 2 or 3 more days or something. But that's just,
you can also have like a
easier.
timeline set in the SOW being like, all right, the project costs this much and I will be working on it from this date to this date and no more. Otherwise, that's a,
yeah, for every day after that,
order.
it's this amount of money per day. Like you can implement a day rate after your original schedule if they still need it or something, you know?
Yeah, just make sure that that's very clear and nobody has to go and look through an SOW to exactly find it.
Yeah, but the reason I advocate so much for a per project rate is just because, like, from a client standpoint, it makes it so much easier. They have the expectation of how much money they're going to spend, you know? Like, otherwise, they're kind of flying blind, not knowing how long it's actually going to take you. And more often than not, you as a freelancer will end up getting pressured to try and get things done and turned in early because they don't want to have you using all those days.
Yeah.
So, boom.
They don't want to spend as much money.
Flat rate. All right.
Yeah. We have lots and lots of good questions.
I know. I'm kind of enjoying this. We might just do crits and whatever tomorrow if we keep getting good questions like this. Leah says Fiverr will make you rich.
Well, I think they're joking.
Yeah, you're so right. You're so right. We love that. What up, Nick? I'm glad to see you. Tutu says, I would love to show someone some of my work and the prices I charge and get an opinion on where I'm at in their opinion, of course. Well, hey, throw it in the critique link in the description, and in that form include in the like extra information how much you charge for it, and we'll talk about that.
Exactly.
Jonas says, do you have someone only for taxes handled in the one for my LLC? Handed in the one for my LLC yesterday. It almost gave me a stroke, all those forms. We do have people just for taxes. We're going to need to find other people just for taxes. We've had other people do it for the past like 2 or 3 years, but I guess 2 years.
It can be hard to find good people to do taxes, especially for creative businesses.
And if they're not actually in your company. You know, if they have a bunch of other clients and don't know what's happening with Ravie day in and day out, our stuff can kind of get pushed to the side and whatever. But yes, Noah and I do not handle it because at this point there's just I have very basic knowledge of what we need and enough to be like, hey, tax guy, what the hell happened here? But that's it. Like I don't have the time to be able to do it on my own.
Hussein Sami says, what advice would you give for a local graphic designer? Local graphic designer to get work outside of your country. Most local clients I encounter don't really value graphic design. That's fine. Post a lot on social media.
We got the internet now. LinkedIn. Go crazy. Connect with people.
Yeah. I think we answered this question on a past live stream too.
Yep. Now,
past motion show.
Erblin says, do you have...
Hold on. Whoa, Before you jump into that, is it already episode 25?
This is episode 26 today. I might have just forgotten to change the title, but yeah, it's 26 today.
That's insane.
I know.
That's... all right. Blowing my mind. We're already...
It's wild.
A quarter to 100.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And it doesn't even feel... It doesn't feel like that long. I know yesterday I said it felt like we've been doing it for like 3 months or something, but like...
It feels like I've been doing it for like a week maybe.
But it doesn't actually feel like that long. It's a very quick... thing. I don't know.
I'm having a great time.
I am too.
I'm having a great time. Thank you guys so much for all these fantastic questions, by the way.
Yeah, this is fun. This is good.
Good questions.
Erblin says, do you have experience when client asks, why should I pay this amount? What is the value of creating a motion video? Yeah, we have that. Yeah. We don't work with those kind of clients.
We don't really like it. But sometimes it can, there's gracious ways to absolutely answer that and kind of explain to them like uh, the value of the design and maybe offer insight into actually how long those animations take to make. Because maybe they just don't know. They probably don't.
You can give case studies of other animation campaigns that have done really well. Like if I were to have to come up with one, I would just be like, look at, you recognize this Microsoft video. Yes, you know this. Look at all of these other companies copying this Microsoft style now and trying to do this thing just to catch up with the amount of influence that they got from that ad campaign. Motion is like magic. It can do all of these different things that live action can't do, and yet it's cheaper than live action. Like, come on. That's a pretty good deal, you know?
And at the end of the day, if they don't understand the value of good marketing,
then kick them to the curb, dude.
then that's gonna just bite them in the ass. Like that's gonna just karma them.
Yeah.
So let them drown if they want to drown, if they insist on it.
You can't sell people on something that they don't want. It just doesn't work. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people that'll say, no, but what if I sold this person this thing that they weren't thinking about? Well, I guess if they still had a need for it. But in that situation, if somebody's asking you, like, what's the value of this thing even, then, I don't know, more often than not, why are they in the meeting with you in the first place? You know, if they reached out to you or you reached out, why did they take the meeting if they didn't know that question? I wouldn't waste my time if I couldn't inherently see some of the value in it. You could also pull that card. You could just be like, hey, you have to see something in this already or we wouldn't be having this conversation, you know?
I think a good business relationship is built on everybody's keeping their own and the other party's best interest in mind.
Yeah.
And finding where that situates them all.
Agreed. Jonas says, B2B prices will always be insane compared to freelancers. I kind of disagree. I think that Ravie especially has struck a very nice middle ground between the insane pricing that agencies charge, but also like, I don't know. I feel like now, all right, I'm not trying to make anybody upset here. Okay. But I bet if I do a like dollar per person calculation of Ravie, for example, versus a single freelancer in the US at this point, I bet there's a better dollar value per person at our studio. Because when you have a freelancer charging like $1,000 a day to get the same thing done, they take 2 weeks on it and it's like $14,000 or something just for one person compared to getting to have like all these different people and opinions and whatever, like melting pot of creative on that. I think that there's going to be a big change pricing wise. I think it's already happening now that tech's kind of gotten all flipped around. Agencies are going to have to come way down on pricing or just turn into middlemen who are just fully just funneling projects to other people and they're just kind of facilitating, you know? Which is totally fine. I mean, if they have relationships with those clients, then that's fair. Like they are paying the agencies because they know they can source the talent to get it done. But on the other hand, the freelancers that have been having it really, really good for the past couple of years, especially in the US, charging like $1,000 to $1,200 a day, that's going to come down big time. But we're also probably going to see a lot of the lower end freelance rates from around the world start to come up because like Hussein asked, like, how can I get work outside of my country? That's just going to be the new normal. We're working with Sam from Morocco and Barbara from Montenegro and Will from the UK and whatever. Like we're all going to become even more connected than we already are. And that's going to make it so that there is a much more homogenous rate zone, I feel like.
I mean, we already have with the pandemic and it's just, its effects are just shockwaving out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean,
we're still adjusting.
Listen to the future podcast or anything like that and hear them talk about what people were charging in like the early 2000s. And it was way more expensive than what people are charging now. You know, pricing is just going to be coming down and that's just how it's going to be. So people just need to figure out how to run their businesses real lean and make it so that they are being very efficient with their time.
The market is being more saturated.
Yep. And so it goes.
That's how it is. Less specialized.
Akto says, do I understand the formula for selling motion videos correctly? Make videos, put them in different showrooms, wait for a client, or is there a more correct sequence?
I think an oversimplification, but
But generally,
not
I
bad.
guess, yeah, make videos should be client content and personal projects, I think.
Yeah.
And for
Showrooms
showrooms is
are.
like social media, and
Oh,
also sending it, like messaging it to your contacts. Um, and then it's not necessarily wait for a client. I mean, it can be, but you should be more active than that. You know, you should be
yeah.
like
I was gonna say.
sending your work to contacts that you have, not in a please I need a project kind of way, but just in a like, hey, I did this recently. I thought you'd find it cool. Um, but that's basically it. And just rinse and repeat. Leah says, did you guys hire anyone to make a website? If yes, how much did that cost? Well, apparently Noah and I were kind of chumps when we paid someone to do our website, but we designed the whole thing and then just didn't know how to implement it properly in Webflow. So we paid a small Webflow agency like $6,000 to implement it. But hey, I still don't feel bad about that because they got it done in like
How was
less
that
than
sound?
it was less than a week, and then also had like only around 2 rounds of feedback, maybe, with like pretty minimal stuff.
How were we chumps doing that?
From
You
what
get
I
websites for a lot cheaper.
from what I've heard, you can get them for way cheaper than that, especially
Ah,
for
well.
just Webflow implementation. We probably could have gotten it for like $1,500 or something.
Maybe, but that was a great experience.
It
man.
was, and
That's-
also we got some client referrals from that. So you know, like it was.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, Morrow and his boys know what's up.
Mhm.
They know how to do it.
They
Um,
They really zoomed on that thing. It was crazy.
They did. It was less than a week. It was super fast, and it makes sense. We just have, they're one of like the top Webflow implementation agencies around. You know,
Mhm.
they were great. Anyway, Mo says, can you explain the way that you handle revisions for flat rate projects? End round of revisions or what? Making really good work is the easiest way, so that they just don't have that many revisions. But also, what we're doing with those flat rates is essentially charging for a certain chunk of time. Whatever timeline they have given us, we're like, all right, that amount of time plus like the actual work that we're going to put into it and whatever is going to cost X amount of money. And so what we'll do in our timeline creation is week by week stages of the process. And usually we leave like a pretty big buffer at the end of projects now, like 3 or 4 weeks or something, depending on how big the project is, in order to just like, if they have as many revisions as they want or whatever, we have 3 or 4 weeks that are already paid for to do it, you know? Like, it doesn't really matter. But seriously, just like, I think we're really good at this point at understanding the client and getting expectations set properly and whatever, to the point where we don't really have that many hiccups with clients anymore like that. We're usually getting 1 or 2 rounds of revisions, and that's pretty much it. If there's any more, it's usually just like there's this one little tiny thing in an animation or something, and it's not like big revisions where we're changing the entire project over, to the point where I wouldn't even count it like a full round of revisions. They're just like little baby fish, you know?
Little baby fish. It's not a problem.
It's just not a big deal.
Yeah, no more gatekeeping. That's right. That's right, chat.
Yeah, gatekeeping
Absolutely.
is lame.
Yes. Do you guys feel that agencies and companies with younger people are better than agencies and companies with older people in terms of modern style, different methods, different mindsets, etc.?
I think they're just different.
It's
That's all.
different. I mean, people who have been around longer have more perspective and more experience and all that jazz. People who are younger usually have more drive and energy to do the things that,
And different
and
experience and
flexibility to
perspectives.
do the things that the people who have been around a longer time won't necessarily. And you know, it's new versus experienced. That's
Yep.
all.
And
So
this industry in particular almost has I have the same argument for it that when we talked about college. Like, we were wondering how a graphic design program in college could keep up when the industry changes so much every like 4 years. Like, it's already completely different by the time somebody would get out of school, you know? It's the same sort of deal. Motion changes like every like 7 years or so to feel like this entirely different thing, to the point where even if you have a ton of experience in it, you might be cemented in the thing that was like your biggest 7-year period of motion, you know? Like, if that was when you were in your prime time, you might be more stuck in those practices and what was popular then. But I think younger people might just have the advantage of like just being on trend right now, you know? It's that, but that experience still will carry for some things. But I don't think there's a better than or worse than or whatever with this. It's just different, you know? Because even if some people are kind of stuck in like whatever the last couple phases of motion design were, their clients probably are too. So it's not exactly like they're hurting a whole lot.
That's right. Now, we have a very hard cutoff at
10
o'clock,
So
but I
probably
think we should give one recommendation.
All right. All right.
Just to make people tide them over until
right.
next time.
I've got 2
Do you have
reels.
one that you wanted to?
So I can give one of those if you'd like.
Go for it.
All
That's
right.
fine.
Here we go. Banger of a reel. Odd Fellows from 2016. Still can't believe it's that old at this point. Also a very slow-paced reel, but they have some real powerful moments, you know? And to any other questions, we will answer them tomorrow. Be sure to come back and ask
really
again,
good
and
one.
we'll be here.
About accepting feedback and that kind of stuff.
Love when the Hortons come in. Feels so fun.
I love that section. The sound, man. The sound is so important.
It's got so much oomph to it, you know? "2016, what the hell, man?"
I know, that's insane.
Like, come on, man.
They
That's
killed that
so
shit.
good. It's so good, dude.
And I have the shortest of Rex. Just a little bit of cell animation you guys will like.
All right.
You ready?
It's on you. I don't have sound, but it's fine.
It's fine. Just loops.
Jeez.
I know.
All right. We got to head out, y'all. But tomorrow,
That's it.
everybody come back, ask your questions again. We'll get to them if we didn't get to them today. I know that some people were asking about charging for processes and stuff like that. I'll show you guys a spreadsheet tomorrow from the very beginning of Ravie for this really ridiculous way that we used to charge for shit. We'll break it all down. It'll be a good time. And on that note, link in the description to critique your work. Subscribe, like,
We
all
didn't
that
even
stuff.
mention we're gonna do a review challenge.
Oh shit! Yeah, there's gonna be a review challenge. You'll see a post about it. My bad. Sorry. We'll talk about it. Here's the link. If you nope, you guys will see it. It'll be in the Discord.
You guys will
It's
see
gonna be
it.
all good.
Check it out.
You'll find it. Review challenge
Bye,
coming
everyone.
up. We'll see
Thanks
y'all
for hanging.
later. Peace.